It is February, so we are back. We are back in February with our fireside chat with Michael Goldberg and Eric Vickery. And today we're going to talk about I don't know, is it the final chapter of a practice, or is it just the chapter
So,
before the final
uh,
chapter?
so that's really interesting. And before we got on, we were talking about books to read.
Yeah.
Built to Sell
Hmm.
um, is what's his name? I forgot his name now.
I'll Google it while you're talking. Yeah.
Anyway, Built to Sell is a great book because what it talks about is that how it shouldn't be the last chapter.
Yeah.
It should
Creating
it should it should be part of the first chapter.
Yeah, Creating a Business That Can Thrive Without You by John Warrillow.
Warlow, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So what he and I see this all the time, and I know you do as well. People don't think what the exit strategy is. They get close to 5 years before they want to retire, and then all of a sudden a light bulb goes on and go, oh, how do I do it?
And this is where we start getting clients. Hey, I want to increase the value of my practice in the last 5 years. I really want to refocus. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what John Warlow says is the best values are gotten by the people who build their practice so that it's sellable, right? So the idea of, you know, what's this going to look like when I'm not there? Will that business thrive? How transferable is it? All that transferability is a huge thing in valuation, right? The old rule of thumb in valuing a practice or in pricing a practice is somewhere between 70 and 80% of the last year's gross. That's the way it used to be.
Yeah. So
Uh,
basically, let's say it's $1 million practice. Okay. Do the math on that. You're probably going to sell it
seven to
for
eight hundred thousand dollars.
$750,000 practice sell. And
Right.
then you're going to pay a broker fee. You're going to pay taxes. There's all this stuff that continues to.
So what, but why? Nobody, I think nobody explained to anybody why that's true.
Hmm.
Well, the reason it's true is that the transferability of a
Mm,
practice
yeah.
is usually 75%. 25% of your patients will leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that means that your next year, if you had $1 million practice, the person who buys it, their next year's gross will probably be 750,000.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they're paying a
A
year's
year's
growth
worth. Yeah. Totally
projected.
different than like a lawyer buying into a firm.
So that totally
Yeah.
different dynamic.
Yeah.
And I
Explain
love
that.
that.
Explain
I
that
love that
difference.
analogy, by
Yeah.
the way,
Yeah. No, I think you should
because
explain the difference for people to understand, because I think it's totally different model how dentistry has versus other industries. But describe like how a lawyer says, I want to be in this, I'm a junior partner, I want to be a senior partner. Like, how would you describe that? They have to,
well, they have to buy in.
yeah.
So so we had this discussion. I had a mastermind group all weekend,
Hmm.
and still not everybody has gotten their practice valued. Practice valuation should happen every year.
Hmm.
Not for any reason other than, if you're the owner, what happens if something happens, right?
Hmm.
What is your estate?
Yeah. Do you
How
think
did
it's that complicated to do evaluation? I mean, like we have trackers, we have numbers in place. Can't somebody like us just look at it from an overview and say, "Hey, $1 million practice 750," or do you really think they need to have like equipment, taxes, all of that stuff? Like you want like the full valuation?
I want a full valuation.
Mm.
I mean, we've all heard of stories where the owner dentist died
Mm-hmm.
and the spouse is left holding the bag
Dealing with it
with,
right now. Dealing with it right now. Right now. And not only the spouse is a former hygienist who is in the practice, daughter is a hygienist in the practice, mother-in-law is the office manager, and dentist dies. Very sad story. Just had things. Just you know, uh, um, um, some type of arthritis. What's the arthritis that's really, really um,
oh,
um, severe? Severe arthritis.
osteoarthritis,
Okay.
rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay. And then he's taking medications, and all that does is suppress his immune system, gets pneumonia, and then he's gone like in 16 hours. It was just crazy. Horrible, horrible, sad story. But now it's like the community has to make it, the community has to make a decision. What's that practice worth now that the doctor's gone? Right. And how do we support this family and not leave them high and dry? Because the patients are all going to go somewhere. If nobody buys it, they'll go somewhere and everybody wins, right? Sad. But we have a client stepping in, willing to take it on and buy it and run it and manage their practice and theirs. And uh, they want a dollar for dollar on the sale price. They want 100% valuation, and it's just not going to. It's not realistic, and it's because it's family saying, hey, this is worth this much. When oftentimes family doesn't have the same understanding and viewpoint of what that value is. I think junior partner to senior partner in a law firm is more like associate to piece of a partnership.
So it's a totally different model.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why chapter one,
Mm-hmm.
what do I want my business to look like, is so important. What is going to be my exit strategy going to be having associates who will become partners and buy in
Mm-hmm.
and then eventually buy me out when I retire or if something happens to me? Or am I going to continue working with maybe myself or maybe with associates who are employees? And then at some point, when I decide, I go look for a buyer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a decision that needs to be made early on.
Mm-hmm.
It needs certainly needs to be decided before you take on an associate.
Or before you get sick, or you know if you have
You
family
know,
working with you, or for your team to understand. Yeah.
we discussed actually this weekend, we would discuss disability insurance, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, most disability plans only go till about 65. Um, they become really, really
It's so
expensive,
expensive, so
really
expensive.
expensive.
Yeah.
I think the best disability plan is having someone in your office who can take over.
Mm. And you still own it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, unless I also, through experience, because I've had plenty of associates, some of whom have gone on to have great careers and built amazing practices on their own. Um, if I had to do it all over again, I would have only hired people who came in as potential partners, except for the specialists.
Okay.
So I did have a multi-specialty group. So I had an endodontist, a periodontist, and an orthodontist
Okay.
in the office.
How many days a
Um,
week were they in your practice?
so the endodontist was a half a day. The periodontist was a full day. The orthodontist was also a half day.
Each week.
Yeah.
And then they would travel to other practices too.
So they had, so one of them was an academic.
Mm.
Um, one of them, I mean, I had
Bunch of
several
different. Yeah.
periodontists.
Yeah.
Um, I only had this one endodontist stay with me my
Mm.
entire career. Um, let's see, the periodontists had one of them was itinerant. So she went practice to practice. And that's very common in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I had the orthodontist had his own practice in a different area of
Mm-hmm.
Manhattan.
Okay.
So he didn't see a conflict.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a client who's considering, they're a three doctor practice. They're very busy. And so they're considering bringing on a periodontist. They're really not doing their own implant surgeries. And, you know, one, they're thinking like 1 day a month, maybe 2 days a month to start out. What do you think? Just depends.
So I think it might be hard to find somebody like that.
So they have someone who, it, like, it just is kind of fall in their laps. So, but you think they'll want 1 day a week? They want to be that fill that day,
Well,
specialist.
I had an associate, so it was 1.5 full-time equivalent
Mm-hmm.
general dentists.
Mm-hmm.
And we were able to support a periodontist 1 day a week.
1 day a week. Yeah, I think that's
I
the
mean,
goal. But it's like,
the periodontist did, I mean, her bread and butter were implants.
mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't, she did a bunch of grafts. There was, you know, if you diagnose properly, you
Yeah,
will come up with opportunities for grafting, some minor pocket elimination surgery, and then implants. And that's what she spent most of her time doing.
yeah, yeah.
You
No,
know,
I think implants right now, all on fours, things like that, that you're trying to get to or trying to, have as a procedure. I think it's smart. So let's talk slow roll. Let's talk slow roll. Let's say my practice is 1.2 to 1.4 right now. I'm starting to feel like, maybe let's say it's a 45 plus year old dentist. Okay. And it's starting to feel like, okay, there's a lot on here. I want to start taking more time off. I'm thinking I want an associate. You said something that's really, really important, which is I didn't bring on an associate that I couldn't see myself being a partner with. I'm summarizing. Okay. But I think, what's the statistic? 93% of all associateships end or something like that. It's like only 7% of associates are lifers for being an associate, I guess is what that statistic is. Uh, so how does one transition their practice from, hey, I'm going to hire an associate, to potential partner? How do you see that play out? What's a typical equity strategy for that process? Can you speak to that?
yeah. So I think the first thing is every associate has to have a contract.
Mm-hmm.
We take that for granted, but it doesn't happen all the time.
Wow.
Um, I'm dealing with a client now who's a great associate,
Mm-hmm.
does not want to be a partner, um, but and was hired on a per diem basis. And e- everybody loves her. She was offered partnership, said no,
Mm-hmm.
and but doesn't have a contract. So now the doctor's thinking of selling.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? Who's going to buy this office if the associate
May
leaves?
not stay. Yeah.
Now the associate's doing, so I work with a lot of practices that do sleep and TMJ.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a general practice with a sleep and TMJ sidecar.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sometimes the sidecar becomes bigger than the car.
Yeah.
And the older dentist usually likes the sidecar because it's less physically taxing
Yeah.
than the general practice.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's happened. We're detaching the sidecar. And now the associate's basically running the general practice.
Mm-hmm.
But the associate has no contract. She's a
Yeah.
free agent. She can leave.
She can leave anytime
What's
she
the
wants.
value?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there's not a lot of peace of mind in that. That's for sure. Not a
Right,
security in that. So a
right.
contract would basically be in place for both parties, but the owning doctor would say, "Hey, this is the percentage you paid. This is the non-compete. This is how much notice I need."
Right. And I like if I'm hiring somebody who I want to eventually buy in,
Hmm.
I want that spelled out.
And what does
When,
that look like? How would if you were the owning doctor, what would you want equity buy-in to look like? How do you do
so
that?
so again, I'm not an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not a certified practice valuation
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
expert, but it becomes a percent
Yep.
based on the valuation. Now, one of the big problems I've seen with associates is associates say that my contribution to the practice
Yeah.
grow
Increase the value of the
increases.
practice.
So now
I'm buying myself. Yeah. I hear that often.
right.
Hmm.
And I agree,
Yeah. I
right?
often say take the valuation before you started here, take the valuation of where you are now and meet in the middle. And that's typically a number we try to come to. So it's not going to be a 1.2 to 2 million. No, that's not going to be it. It's going to be like 1.6. That's going to be where we're going to evaluate for it. And then we're going to come off of that.
So some of that depends on how much that what the percentage the associate is
Is
being paid.
working. And working too, because they might be working 2 days, they be working 4 days. Now the senior doctor's only working 2 days. Yeah.
Right. So there's, I think, a whole
Hmm.
formula.
Yeah. And once you come to evaluation, let's say I'm your associate, we come to agreement, okay? And then I want to start buying in over time. Do you like, take money out of my paycheck and it goes into an equity fund? Do you like that? Do you like, I'm actually physically paying you something into an account? How do you like to see that happen? Or is it some other way? Is it shares in a corporation?
So most dental practices are not C corps,
Yep.
so there are no shares.
Yep.
Most of them are S corps.
Yeah, that would be more like
Um,
a DSO or something then.
right.
Yeah.
Um, so it depends, and it's changed. So it's changed considerably because so many young doctors are in so much debt. So
Mm.
they don't want to get into more debt,
To buy in. Yeah.
right? So it depends on the individual. You can buy in based on your current production. So maybe a certain amount of that production gets put into that escrow account.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's
doesn't even
say
have to be a
I'm an associate. I'm getting 30% of my net production collections. And now we're going to put 5% in that equity fund every month or whatever. Does that
right,
sound about right? Okay.
right. Now, I mean,
What do you think?
I've had this with the client. It doesn't have to be real money.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Nobody really moves anything. They're just on an Excel spreadsheet tracking something down.
that
And then in the time,
5%,
yeah. And
it's
then
going to lower your buy-in.
Yeah, and then you're just looking at the end going, "Oh, there's no real money changing hands. It's just somebody's tracking it. Somebody's
Oh yeah,
tracking it. Like there's an
uh,
Excel spreadsheet or whatever, but
right.
but in the end, we're
And,
just dropping the
right.
price."
And if the associate leaves before
Hmm.
the vesting
Yeah.
time,
Yeah.
they get
It's gone.
nothing.
It's gone. Yeah, it's like
Golden handcuffs.
it's like vesting totally. So, story time. We just bought a home, and the roof needed to be replaced, and we agreed that seller was going to give us back money at closing. Well, uh, I didn't realize they didn't actually give me money, right? What happens? They just lowered my closing costs by a certain amount, and then I got to go pay for the roof. So 6 of one, half does the other, right? But somebody's tracking that agreement, that amount, and what's happening and coming back. Yes. Okay. All right. Now, I know DSOs probably aren't our like, specialty, right? They might not be our favorite thing all the time, but let's talk about that vantage point as well.
So I've been involved in, I think, a dozen transitions.
Mm-hmm.
Lately, they've all been DSOs.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been involved with some very, you know, high class practices, fee for service that were actually bought by DSO. And you have to it's I I don't like painting a brush and saying all DSOs are terrible.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah,
Not all
I
DSOs are not
agree.
created
And
equal.
if you think about it, somebody who just a dentist who owns two locations with some associate, that by definition would be a DSO. You know, because
Well,
you're a group practice and you're supporting multiple locations, multiple doctors. You're an entity, right? So where do you draw
right.
that line? There's kind of a gray line as to. I like to draw it at corporate versus private. Maybe that might be where you draw a line.
So, I think there are there are lots of different DSOs models too.
Mm,
I mean, you have
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
the Heartland,
Yep.
you
Big.
have the
Yep.
Aspen,
Mm-hmm.
you have the MB2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you're familiar with MB2.
Mm-mm.
So MB2 is partial ownership.
Oh
So
yeah, 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 yeah,
you only sell a part. So
yeah.
you sell a part of the DSO, and the doctor actually owns
Mm-hmm.
a part
Of the
of the
DSO.
DSO. So
Yeah.
as
Um, DPO is how I've heard that
uh,
phrase. Dental Partnership Organization.
they call it
Yeah.
DEOs,
All kinds
MSOs.
of yeah.
It's all
So I just listened to an amazing accountant talk about this, and he will take the DSO, golden handcuffs you talked about for the 5 years, and say, okay, this is what you would make minus your tax hit on everything, all the taxing you hit. This is he did this analogy of like a $20 million offer for this ortho group practice. He's like, all right, let's play it out. Okay, you got to be there for 5 years. This is what you get paid if you hit your targets and get your pay. Here's what you'd walk away with. I think it was like 11 million actually, and then because of taxes and all the stuff he had to pay, it was actually an 11 million deal. He's like, if you practice for 5 years more on your own and you owned, and then you sold and your practice was worth that much, here's how much you get. It was like 12 million or something. So it was interesting to look at the numbers. So I think there is a place for selling to a DSO for in the right situation. I think, depending on age and all these things. But I think it's also important to make sure we know it's not just about money.
well. So you touched on something that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Your advisory team has to be qualified to help you make all these decisions. So I hate to rail on accountants, but most accountants are historical. They look at what you've made and they tell you how much tax you owe. That is not the accountant that you need.
Mm.
You need a proactive accountant who, like the
Mm-hmm.
accountant in that lecture,
Mm-hmm.
can give you models
Mm-hmm.
that you can choose from.
Comparisons to choose from. Yeah.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
So that you can figure out, look, we're not trained in any of these things.
Why try
We're
to do it
trained
on
to
your
do
own?
dentistry.
Yeah. Why try to do it on your own? Yeah.
You
Yeah.
need you need real experts
Mm-hmm.
who can advise you. And the time to find those experts is not when you
At the
decide
last
to
minute.
sell.
At the last minute. So one of the things he points out is think about it like this. There's a reason why this organization wants your business. If they'd
Well,
want to buy your business for that much money, what does that tell you? You have a really good business. Being a business owner is a really, really good thing. And so be smart about it and really look at the options on what works best for your situation. And like you're talking about, can I be part owner? What part? I had a doctor tell me, she's like, I'm so tired of managing my team and the stress of owning a practice. I just want to sell to a DSO. And I said, I thought to myself, bless her heart. I said, well, they're not coming in and managing your team for you. They're just writing the checks now, and they want you to operate the same exact way you've been operating because it's successful. They don't want to tell you what to do. They're going to help you lower your costs and your expenses and direct things. They're going to sign the checks. They're going to offer some employee 401k type stuff, but they're not going to come in and all of a sudden you got a new leader in the practice. That's not how it
so
works.
that's the misconception
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is so
absolutely.
common.
Yeah.
At,
And
and that's what DSO, and frankly, that's what DSOs promote. Their,
and
their
yeah,
sales pitch is,
nobody will
doctor,
know. Yeah.
you focus on the dentistry. Let us do the stuff you don't like
Profit
doing.
loss, the profit and loss.
Right. We'll
Yeah.
do the management.
Yeah.
Well, they're not there every day.
No,
You're there every
yeah,
day.
no.
You're
You might
still.
get some regional manager type stuff where they're managing that, which I think is great. There are some, I have really, really good friends in DSO world and they do an amazing job, but I think there are certain ones that I think move into what I call corporate. And I think corporate becomes a whole nother different game. So, but you
So
can,
you touched on
yeah.
something really interesting in that since I think, first of all, DSOs will pay more,
Hmm.
and they'll pay more because part of the valuation of the DSO is dependent on how many practices and how much money is being generated. It's a cash flow issue that most dentists don't understand.
Mm,
So a a dental practice is worth somewhere between 2.5 and 3.5 times
hmm.
EBITDA,
Hmm.
earnings before
Before
interest, depreciation, taxes,
and
all
assets.
the stuff that passes through
Hmm.
the office that isn't really office expense.
Hmm.
So 2.5 to 3.5 times EBITDA. As a DSO grows, it can be valued, not necessarily sell, but valued at 10 to 15 times EBITDA.
Mm,
And that, as it keeps on growing, it's sort of like a house of cards.
hmm.
I mean, they
Well,
keep on
someone's gonna
getting
have to pay too much for it at some point.
right. Somebody's going to pay too much at some
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
But
I see 4.5. It depends on the collections, but 4.5 times EBITDA as well. I mean, it just depends on what.
wait, 4.5 times, wait, to an individual?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, a single dentist buying into a practice?
Oh, no, no. A
No.
DSO buying
Ah,
a
so
single.
the
I see what you're saying.
DSO will buy it four
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
Why?
4.5 to 5.
Well,
Yeah.
right, but an individual can't do that
No, you
because
can't
they
go get a
can't get
loan.
the.
They don't have private funding. The DSO has private funding. Totally agree. Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned earlier, hey, we don't know about these things. We need to have a team around us, all of that. Totally agree. When it comes time to sell, what do you think about somebody who's like, I just need every dollar I can for selling my practice. I'm 72. I got to sell this. And I really don't want to hire a broker because they're going to take 10% of it, which is going to end up costing me $40,000. I want to try
Wait,
to
wait,
sell
wait.
it my own.
10%?
20%, whatever. I don't
No,
know.
it's usually running. So there's actually a company that sells for 3%.
Well, yeah, yeah.
So
I've
it's somewhere
I've
between.
heard some pros and cons about some things like sometimes things aren't as always as they seem. But let's
You
say they're
should see
thinking if I find a broker in my area that has a network of people, 10%. Do you think it's smart to try to sell on your own first, see what you can do, and then go to a broker? Do you think it's smart just to go to a broker? Depending on the situation.
So I'll tell you how I got into this business. So my best friend had a practice in Pennsylvania, and he had a financial planner, and the financial planner told him how much he needed for the sale to keep up his lifestyle.
Mm,
And he went to a broker who did a valuation, and he figured that with the sale at that valuation, and at the with the broker fee, which was
mm-hmm,
10%,
mm-hmm,
um, he wouldn't hit that number that he needed.
mm,
And he was bemoaning the fact that he would have had to sell his boat.
mm.
And I loved going on that boat.
With my best friend. Yeah, don't sell the
So
boat.
great, don't sell the boat. We used to go on the boat every summer. So I said, I'll sell it for you.
Yeah.
So I did.
Hmm.
I went out there. I crafted a an ad that went in the State Dental Journal. I sent it to every single one of the postgraduate
Mm,
programs
hmm.
in the tri-state area.
Hmm.
Um, and did something a little different. My wife was a real estate broker.
Mm.
So I took what I learned from her,
Mm-hmm.
and we had open houses.
Mm-hmm.
We had two open houses. Difference was, it wasn't really open. You scheduled a time to come.
Yeah.
And I scheduled times so that there was overlap, so that people saw other people coming and going.
Mm-hmm.
We had two open houses. I sold the practice. Turns out that we sold the practice for 50% more
Mm.
than what the broker said he
Mm-hmm.
would get for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't charge him anything. So he
Yeah.
got,
You got to ride the boat for a lot longer though. You that was
I,
your fee.
I got the boat. He wound up selling the stupid boat a couple of
Hey, you
years
paying
later,
for
which
all
pissed
that.
me off.
You're like, I get a commission on the boat sale then.
I was like, really? No, the boat was
So
underwater.
so do you think it's like a case by case basis on whether or not you should get a broker?
Yeah. So I think it
Mm-hmm.
depends. He couldn't have done what I did. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
a born salesman. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that was my family. I told you the story. My great grandfather started a business in 1890 that's still in business.
Mm.
I mean, I have sales in my blood.
Mm-hmm.
So and I was willing to, and I know marketing because of my,
Mm-hmm.
studies with Dan Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
So I had the tools to do that. Um, so it really, I don't like brokers.
Mm.
I shouldn't say that, but I don't, a broker, I mean, think about, and again, it comes from my, relationship with real estate, my wife. You can't have a broker representing both the seller and the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not fair.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's what most dental brokers do.
Yeah.
They represent the seller and the buyer.
Both sides of it. Yeah.
I made contact with somebody recently, who is a broker for DSOs.
Mm-hmm.
He goes and finds
Mm-hmm.
practices for DSOs. The DSOs pay him,
Yeah.
which I love.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I like that.
Mm-hmm. He's
But
getting a salary.
no, he's getting a percentage of the deal,
Oh, okay. Out of finding the, yeah, I
but he
understand what
gets
you
it
mean.
from the DSO.
Yeah.
Now, you need someone. What I've done is I have advocated for my clients so that I get them the highest price possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if you're an active client, I don't charge you for that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not an active client or you've just become a client, I actually charge a percentage of the difference of the 75% valuation that you would normally get and what I would help you get.
Yeah.
So I get paid out of the
The ice,
difference.
you get paid off the icing on the top.
That's
Yep.
right.
Yep. Okay. That's good. So back to that team who I should have around me. We talked about this before. So who I'm 45 plus, I'm really like, all right, associate, partnership. Do I just turnkey at the end? Do I go DSO? Who do I need on my team? Who do I need to have in my ear?
So really important. So you need a dental accountant,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a society. There's a National Society
Mm-hmm.
of Dental Accountants.
Mm-hmm.
Um, don't use Uncle Uncle Joe, who,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah, we have a couple that we refer to. Yeah. Yeah. So
right. So
totally
a
agree.
dental
Yep.
accountant,
Mm-hmm.
you need a dental attorney.
Yep. We refer to one as well. Yeah. Who really does practice transition sales contracts. Yes. And that if a buyer walks through your door and you don't need a broker, this is who you go to, because a broker is just connecting the two of you and then
The,
handing it off to an attorney.
the only value a broker has is to bring you
That's right.
the
The
buyer,
buyer. Yep. Yep.
right? That's the
Yep.
only value.
Mm-hmm.
If and if you're listening to this, you're hopefully working with a good consultant.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Your consultant is the one that's advocating for the valuation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? I mean, frankly, working with a consultant adds value to the practice.
Hmm. A lot of lenders, so you'll see B of A do this, they won't even let you enter into the loan unless you have a consultant or coach hired. And sometimes it's somebody they make you use. But yeah,
No, I didn't know that. They
yeah.
make you use people?
I've there was well, I'll just say there was an agreement with some big companies. It's like you had to use this certain consultant, and I was like, okay, according to the lender. I'm like, that seems odd, but yeah. So I have seen that before, and maybe hopefully that's gone away, but um, we'll say names offline. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but no, I see that where you've got to have a consultant in play that
Yeah.
can help guide your
Well,
business decision. Yeah.
that's what adds value. I mean, it
Hmm.
adds, and I don't think we do a good enough job telling this when we promote our services.
Hmm.
Um, because a well-run practice, a practice that is team driven, as both you and I believe in,
Hmm.
is worth more because the doctor doesn't become the key ingredient. You can interchange the doctor
Hmm.
and the team still runs the show.
Hmm.
So if you have a well-run machine, your transferability is significantly higher. I don't know if I told you the story.
Easier.
I was
Yeah.
teaching practice management at Columbia. I started teaching the course in the 90s. And the I took over from somebody who was an older guy, and he retired. And the dean asked me to take over the course. I said, "Great," and I took over the consultants and who were lecturing. And a consultant comes up to they're teaching in this class, and I'm sitting and listening, and they say talking about how a insurance PPO practice is worth more than a fee for service practice. And I'm like, but I built this great fee for service practice. You mean to tell me that my fee for service practice that everybody wants isn't worth more? And she said, no, it's not, because you built it based on you,
Mm.
and the transferability is less. A PPO practice, people go to PPO practices because you accept their insurance.
Mm.
So it's not as personalized. And because that, the transferability isn't as great.
Mm.
Uh, I was taken back, but now I totally get it.
Yeah.
But I also understand that when you have a team, even if you have a fee for service practice, if you have a team behind you
That
that
can run it.
runs the show,
Yeah.
all right, especially a general practice. General practice, what's the value in the general practice? Value in the general practice is your hygiene program.
Mm.
Your patients aren't
Yeah.
coming in to necessarily see the doctor. They see the doctor for 5 minutes,
Hmm.
once or twice a year. Who are they seeing? They're seeing the
Yeah.
hygienist.
So maybe that's why I haven't experienced what she's saying, because I haven't experienced that at all. Not to mention the valuation is higher because collections are higher, um, but the team maybe is doing such a good job at, we call them practice insulators, protecting the practice from atrophy because you're at a network, showing value, customer service,
Patient
sales
experience.
skills, patient experience, systems, everything's in place. So when the doctor leaves, next person can simply be trained on some verbal skills and be able to keep it going. As long as their quality and skill set's great, then it keeps it going. Yeah, it's interesting. I had never heard that before. Hmm. It's definitely easier. It's definitely like an easy way out. Like, yeah, you're a network. Yeah, I'm a network. But man, there's a different stress at the other side of that with paying the
Well,
bills.
and now you know how, I mean, you're working with clients, I know, who are trying to transition from PPO
Oh,
to fee for service.
so many offices trying to get, well, I call it out of network. They're going PPO to out of network. Some are trying to go to fee for service at next level. But yeah, for sure, so many clients are like, we can't
Right.
operate at this
Now,
low fee.
what does that mean to the exit? What does
Hmm.
that mean to the valuation of the practice?
Hmm.
Who's going to buy the fee for service practice?
Hmm.
I mean, the people that are going to buy a fee for service practice are a smaller market than people looking for a PPO practice.
Mm-hmm.
And most DSOs want PPO practice. Most, not all.
Mm.
Most most of them want PPO practices because they know that at your negotiated contract, when they buy you, they're going to make 25 to 30% more automatically because they've negotiated better
Fees.
contracts.
Yeah, they get better fees. Yeah. I understand that. Yeah, I have never thought of it that way because from my perspective, what I see is we take a practice collecting 600,000, we move it to $1 million collection. So immediately the valuation goes high, but you're right, you're going to have a smaller pool of potential buyers for that type of practice. Um, but I think from my perspective, and maybe I'm jaded, I think it's just more attractive. I think just such a better situation, and certain
It's
people are going to
it
buy.
it's
Yeah.
so much better.
Yeah.
I
Maybe
mean,
it's like the same thing with a patient. You get a lot of patients who are like, are you a network or a network, network? And you have a smaller patient pool who really are looking for quality over quantity. And that's who you're attractive. And so there's Walmart and there's Nordstrom or something, you know. So yeah, I get that. And so you're gonna have fewer potential buyers, but the value to those people is that it's higher.
right. So I would say that if I'm looking to go from PPO to fee for service, I want to think more about bringing in an associate who I'm going to transition the practice to
Yeah.
than a DSO who's going to buy me out.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with that. I think you got to find the right person. You got to date them. You got to woo them, and they got to woo you, and the whole thing. All right, this has been good. I like this. I will say a couple things. I went to OpenAI, my free account, and I went to Chat GPT, and I said, "Give me a book summary of Built to Sell by John Marillo." And so I've got 6 points here on what to do. So book summaries, tell you if you want to go get the book or not. So love that. And number two, something we didn't really talk about but really jump into was a financial advisor. I
Oh, well,
think a
that,
team
so we
team
did.
person. Yeah.
So
So
it
yeah.
accountant,
Yep.
lawyer,
Yep.
financial advisor,
Yes. Yes.
banker.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Totally agree. Like we're helping these dentists who have these 401k plans where they're paying ridiculous amounts of money. And we have an organization we work with that does a free complimentary evaluation to show you how much money you're spending and how much um, you could be saving. We just transitioned a client in Pennsylvania. They're going to save $19,000 a year on their retirement plan, 401k plan, in fees, and that's the dentist paying that fee, not the employees.
Yeah.
So 401ks are good, but they're also, man, there's a lot of people making money on those 401ks. You got to be really careful. So make sure you have a
So
financial advisor who can
what what
investigate that.
one tip. So many dentists have a significant amount of money in banks,
Mm-hmm.
and some banks offer free financial planning
Mm-hmm.
as part of their high net worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and some of them are good,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they don't cost what
They come
you
with
would.
having your money at the bank. That just comes with it. Yeah, having an advisor there.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. So there's so many good things here to unpack. We'll dive deeper in our coaching sessions with our clients, I guess. All right. Well, we'll end the recording here. We'll see you guys all in March. We have our May event coming up, May 16th to the 19th in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And gosh, it's all built on growth. So we got leadership training for doctors, for office managers or team leads. We've got a phone skills boot camp. We've got growth growth sessions being offered by I think 12 different presenters in the dental industry that are coming in for 2 days. And then on Sunday, we also offer a life mastery by my wife and I for personal life improvement. So, what about you? What do you have coming up?
So we're actually starting tomorrow night. We're starting a mastermind group for office managers.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, our mastermind group, our titanium mastermind group we call it diamond mastermind group, which is office managers that's included with it too. And it's so smart. You need your what we call integrators. You need your people to make sure you're getting it done. So doctors need their mastermind group, of course, but so do your team leads. They need that monthly. So completely agree. It's so valuable. Our integrator, our lead coach, Shelly, she runs that with all the coaches. They get on there and do the same fun thing with these managers, these team leads who need this. They've been wanting this. And I think doctors have been unaware that their team would really want and value this. And I think if you have somebody who doesn't value that or want that, that's also another signal. Another sign. Yeah. Awesome. All right. We'll wrap up the recording. We'll see you guys next month.